Over the years, anthology TV shows have been a constant source of social and political commentary. Even as far back as the 1960s, you had shows like The Twilight Zone, posing cutting-edge moral questions and showing the worst of humanity. One of the most successful takes on this concept is Black Mirror, the show created by now famous everything critic Charlie Brooker, to take well thought out potshots at the effects of technology on the human race. However, over the years, has this show lost its edge? And has it been overtaken by a much lesser known show with just a savage social commentary? Well, take an Amish crafted chair and fasten your tinfoil hat, because it's time to see if Black Mirror has lost its touch. You probably know about Black Mirror. As soon as it took a big hefty paycheck from Netflix, it had a sudden explosion of popularity that has cemented the show in the public consciousness, leading to any kind of technological advancement being met with a reaction, "That's just like Black Mirror." But as jaded as I've become with the show, there is no denying that it easily earned this popularity and cultural significance. For a while, this was an incredible show, a brilliantly dark look at the future. It took inspiration from The Twilight Zone with its unsettling tales in anthology format. It posed deep philosophical questions not just about technology itself, but how we use it, and sometimes it didn't focus on technology alone at all. Ask 100 Black Mirror fans what their top 5 episodes are. Almost all of them will have the Series 2 episode White Bear in that list. It was my own first exposure to the show, back when it was still just on Channel 4, and it's pretty much the best advertisement for the show as a whole. White Bear follows a woman called Victoria, who wakes up in a strange house with amnesia. We go in just as blind as her, so there's no dramatic irony. We don't know anything she doesn't, so we're just as confused when she finds people filming her on their mobile phones without engaging with her. We feel sympathy for her plight, and the story unfolds like a post-apocalyptic tale, with costumed psychos and desperate survivors. It's a thrilling, fast-paced journey, and Victoria begins to remember more and more of her memories until the episode culminates in the reveal that everything is staged and she had been arrested for kidnapping a young girl with her fiance, sentenced to daily psychological punishment at what is essentially a theme park. Technology itself takes a backseat to the story. In fact, it's even used as a red herring, with the reoccurring glyph being a false lead as to the true nature of the episode. White Bear is all about how society has become desensitized to punishment because of media coverage and people's empathy for others decreasing. It's all about morality and how people have started to enjoy the humiliation of others for entertainment to validate their own ideas of justice. How criminal cases become witch hunts. White Bear is an incredible piece of media, packed full of biting social commentary that has only become more relevant since the episode aired. Victoria has done a horrible crime and she deserves punishment, but are we right to punish her the way she is, turning it into a voyeuristic entertainment source? It never once says anyone is in the right, and that makes it interesting because it shows how people have different senses of justice and morality. Another episode that seems to dominate top 5 lists is the Series 3 episode Shut Up and Dance, which has been analysed and praised to the sun and back. But to summarise, Shut Up and Dance deals with hacking and blackmailing, after our protagonist gets his webcam hacked as he is doing a naughty thing. He goes through a gauntlet of events he's forced to carry out, and at the end we find out that he had actually been watching an illegal type of naughty thing I can't say on YouTube. Much like White Bear, it spends almost the entire runtime presenting the protagonist as a sympathetic character, but the ending pulls the rug from underneath us by revealing his horrible crime. It's an extremely cynical and nihilistic episode. It once again brings up that topic of mob justice and torture punishment for crimes. Like Victoria, Kenny deserves to be punished for his crime, but is the punishment he goes through too excessive? It's an important moral question, and it shows the grey area of vigilante justice, along with the more surface level commentary about the dangers of internet and hacking. Shut Up and Dance and White Bear are perfect examples of what makes Black Mirror good. They explore how we use technology and how it makes us act and feel, but that's where newer Black Mirror falls short. The stories have become more of a surface level technology bad commentary, without having that visceral nihilism of everyone being monsters in their own way. A lot of earlier Black Mirror episodes were about the personal effect technology has on each and every one of us. Take the entire history of you, for example. This episode shows a world where everyone has a device called a grain, which allows them to play memories back. However, this isn't the main outright focus. It's the narrative device. It's a simple premise used to reinforce a regular drama story about cheating and jealousy. It's the instigator and the vessel for the story, as protagonist Liam becomes obsessed with it since it can prove his wife's affair. The story isn't really about the grain itself, it's about its effect on people's relationships. It's handled with class and logic, creating an interesting story that isn't just technology bad. A very similar basic premise is later used in Series 4's Archangel, but instead of using the technology as just a vessel, it becomes the main focus, with a very flimsy story cobbled together around it. Archangel is all about a brain chip that can allow a mother to keep track of her daughter, eventually becoming obsessed with it and turning into a helicopter parent. But instead of focusing on how exposure or lack thereof to bad things can change a person's worldview, it once again just becomes a surface level technology bad. In the entire history of you, everyone is flawed and nobody is in the right. But in Archangel, it's very clearly presented as the mother being in the wrong and the daughter in the right, until they desperately try to change that at the end, where the daughter tries to kill the mother for ruining her relationship. It goes off the rails, and not in a dramatically engaging way. There's no rhyme or reason to the episode, and it feels like a weak story, because it focuses on all the wrong aspects of the concept, rather than using the concept to enhance the core dramatic story. It shows the shift Black Mirror has recently taken into repeating older, better used concepts with less depth. With some of the episodes from Series 4 and 5 of Black Mirror, it just feels like the concepts are stretched too thin, rather than feeling like some revolutionary social commentary. It's become so surface level. A lot of the ideas for episodes simply aren't deep enough to be entire episodes. They have no substance and don't warrant the runtime. It's what makes the 3 episodes of Series 5 so terrible, with Rachel, Jack and Ashley 2 the ringleader of this awfulness. There's a kernel of an interesting story there, but it isn't handled right. Instead, it ends up being like a terrible Disney TV film for adults, with Miley Cyrus's character being all, nobody understands me and I'm a slave to the industry when I want to make edgy emo music, not this pop stuff. It's not really some cutting commentary. It once again has a clear villain and a clear protagonist. There are only flaws on one side of the story, removing that morally grey storytelling of the past, and it makes the episode fail as a result. It also reuses the cookie concept from White Christmas, but a lot less effectively, once again showing a lack of creativity and new ideas. Black Mirror simply ended up telling too many stories, running out of steam with episodes that are too similar with surface level concepts, and a lack of focus on the effects of technology, just the technology itself. In February 2013, The Waldo Moment aired, which would be the last regular episode of Black Mirror until Series 3 was released on Netflix in 2016. With the exception of White Christmas in 2014, there was a long period without the anthology show. But this period was a void soon filled by another anthology show called Inside Number 9, which began airing on BBC Two in February 2014. A mix of black comedy, horror and comedy drama, Inside Number 9 is the brainchild of Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton. Much like Black Mirror, Inside Number 9 features entirely contained stories with one-off casts and tales of depressing realities and the nature of humanity. Unlike Black Mirror, however, Inside Number 9 has a lot of variation and a constant sense of freshness each time. Every episode of Inside Number 9 is completely different and experimental. As a show, it is constantly using unique and creative framing. Cold Comfort is presented exclusively through the view of CCTV cameras. Zanzibar is an episode written entirely in iambic pentameter and performed like a play. Each episode is presented so creatively that you can never really point to one and say, oh, it's just a generic Inside Number 9 episode. There are a few constants, those being the presence of one or both writers as characters, twists aplenty, and every episode being inside a single location. But these constants never end up being tiring, and the show is always able to stay fresh and keep you on edge. Inside Number 9 is a glowing example of the bottle episode format. Bottle episodes are usually episodes shot on one set with only a few characters. Usually these kinds of episodes are used when scripts fall through and a new episode needs to be quickly assembled, or when the budget doesn't cover that whole series. But they can also be used intentionally for dramatic effect, which is what Inside Number 9 has become known for. Every episode of Inside Number 9 takes place in a singular location, almost always a single room, and almost every episode has a very small cast. If you've followed this channel for a while, you'll probably have noticed that these kinds of episodes are my weakness, and I can't get enough of them. It's why Doctor Who's Midnight is one of my favourite episodes of any TV show ever. I've always had a firm belief that the ultimate challenge for any writer is to give yourself as little to work with as possible. Setting everything in one small, restrictive location makes you have to work extra hard to make it flow and keep the viewer engaged. You have to think a lot harder about how characters interact and how the narrative itself plays out. You can't use action scenes or different settings to help you. You have to do it all with one setting and a few characters talking for the entire episode. It's an incredibly difficult task to pull off, but Inside Number 9 constantly excels with these restrictions, turning them into one of its main strengths and drawing you in with its compelling narratives and characters. One of the biggest reasons it can do this is because it has mastered the art of the twist. Inside Number 9 is known for its masterful use of misdirection. Twists are the name of the game, and it plays the game exceptionally. Each episode goes through a rollercoaster ride of wild twists that you never see coming. Just when you think you've had the big twist, they pull out the Uno reverse card and reveal another twist that you never expected. As you become more familiar with the show, it almost becomes a battle of wits, as you keep trying to guess where the story is going and outsmart the show before it reveals the truth. It's like a murder mystery where you're trying to beat the writer to the conclusion with your own powers of deduction. There's a brilliant episode titled The Riddle of the Sphinx, which is almost self-aware that you're trying to beat it, since the whole episode is anchored around a crossword puzzle. The story starts out with a simple premise: a young woman trying to sneak a look at that week's university crossword so she can sound smart to her boyfriend. However, as typical with Inside Number 9, the episode winds up being twist after twist, constantly outsmarting you because it pulls something new out just when you think you're ahead of the episode. By the end of the episode, the woman is paralysed and dying, but turns out to be the biological daughter of the professor, who she was trying to kill for driving her brother to suicide. Oh, and the professor is forced by his colleague to eat a piece of her flesh, since the colleague is the non-biological father of the woman, since his wife had an affair with the professor. Yeah, as I said, it's wild. The episode is a battle of wits between the professor and his would-be assassin, just like how it's a battle of wits with the viewer trying to guess the ending. Even though these twists are multi-layered and highly unpredictable, they're often actually seeded throughout the episode. The key to a good twist is making it make sense and not come too much out of the blue. The writer needs to reward the viewer for thinking outside the box because the clues are there to be picked up on. Inside Number 9 does this often, which means episodes don't end like, wait what? And more like, oh, it all makes sense now. One of the best examples of this is the episode 12 Days of Christine. This episode follows the life of Christine, as we see 12 important days of her life inside her small flat, from meeting her future husband to birthdays and other social events. However, sometimes this episode grinds to a sudden, dark halt, as things take a turn, with one instance being Christine alone in the flat, and suddenly having eggs pelted from nowhere and seeing a mysterious raincoat man. It plants the idea of the twist being something to do with Christine's ex-boyfriend, with the appearances of the mysterious man in a raincoat causing you to double down on this theory. But the story ends with the revelation that she died in a car collision with the raincoat man's car, and the eggs from her shopping bag split open in the crash, smashing them. It's sudden and throws you for a loop, but the hints were there all along. Even if the intricacies of the ending are still out of nowhere, it feels earned because the twist was seeded throughout the story and it makes sense at the end. Due to the use of more twists than an illegal rollercoaster, episodes of Inside Number 9 always end in a completely different way to how they began, because episodes unravel with more extreme consequences. Take the episode Nana's Party for example. It begins with a man named Jim planning a prank on his sister-in-law's husband Pat, but it ends with Jim's family falling apart because he was actually having an affair with his sister-in-law. There is a domino effect that escalates things worse and worse, playing on the human need for damage control, unravelling a small lie into a giant scandal. Since this domino effect is in almost every episode, you eventually begin to feel a genuine sense of unease at the beginning of episodes, because you're thinking of how bad things can possibly get. I remember watching the episode The Bill and thinking to myself, oh, that was a good episode, until I realised it had only been on for 10 minutes, and still had a lot to go. Usually that would be a bad thing because it makes you feel like it's dragging, but with Inside Number 9 it's a strength because it's only the tip of the iceberg, and you look forward to seeing how they up the ante. On a surface level, it's easy to compare Black Mirror and Inside Number 9, just because they're anthology shows, but they do actually have a lot of parallels and similarities. For me personally, Inside Number 9 has managed to pick up from where Black Mirror tripped over and dropped the ball. I don't want to be that guy who goes on about how Black Mirror was ruined by Netflix, because Series 3 was good and a lot of Series 4 was good too, but Series 4 drove Black Mirror to the cliff edge, before Bandersnatch and Series 5 drove it off the edge and set fire to the car when it was at the bottom. Black Mirror started off as a show about human psychology, but the technological aspects of it became the thing everyone wanted to see. It shot itself in the foot and backed itself into a corner, becoming the show about technology gone bad. Inside Number 9, however, never put itself in the position to be backed into the highly restrictive corner in the first place. It doesn't focus on how technology is bad, but it uses the same anthology format for scathing social commentary about the worst of humanity. A prime example of this is the episode Last Gasp, where a singer comes to see a terminally ill fan on her birthday, but dies while blowing up a balloon. The episode then delves into the people present trying to profit off his final breath, since it's inside the balloon. It explores greed and celebrity memento culture. The concept in general has a sort of absurdness to it, but that makes the commentary sting more, because it's a dark comedy satire. Black Mirror is very much a serious and gritty show, trying to stay grounded and realistic. Nosedive is an episode that is extremely realistic, exposing vapidness and people's desperation for relevance and clout. However, even though it's one of the more satirical and dark comedy episodes, I don't feel like it works as well as the more comedic yet unnerving satires of Inside Number 9. Black Mirror has to force itself to stay grounded and only make stories that feel like they could actually happen. But Inside Number 9 doesn't put this restriction on itself. It's not afraid to leave reality by making episodes about the paranormal, with literal ghosts. It gives it a lot more variety and narrative potential. Black Mirror explored the acceptance of death with creepy androids, but Inside Number 9 has done it with escapism and character grief in a more light-hearted way with sinister undertones. Bernie Clifton's Dressing Room is a really interesting take on accepting death, since it's a forgotten comedy duo rehearsing for a comeback show, settling their differences because of disagreements in the past. However, at the end it is revealed that one of the duo died, and this is just before his funeral, with the events of the episode just being the surviving member's way of finding closure in his own mind. These kinds of commentaries are harder for Black Mirror to tackle, because it doesn't acknowledge an afterlife. It tries to ground itself in science and facts, which means its creativity is much more limited. At the end of the day, Black Mirror and Inside Number 9 are very different shows with different purposes, but they have a lot of similarities that allow you to compare how they have aged over time. Black Mirror has certainly had a more significant cultural impact, but from a critical standpoint, there is so much more value with the endless creativity and potential of Inside Number 9. I don't doubt that there is still potential within Black Mirror, but much like the thick of it, you can only do so much socio-political commentary until real life becomes more of a parody than your own satire. With the complex behind the scenes issues regarding the Black Mirror IP right now, it seems like we might go on an extended period without any of the show. But personally I think this is a good thing, because it was starting to run on empty and regurgitate worse versions of better episodes. Inside Number 9 has simply been able to stay more consistent than Black Mirror, due to its creative limitations of settings and small casts, compared to Black Mirror's limitations of technology bad. Both shows do bite in commentary and satire incredibly well. It just feels like Black Mirror has ended up with much blunter teeth than its anthology rival, which has an insatiable appetite and razor sharp fangs. But what do you think? Given the popularity of Black Mirror, I expect most of you in the comments will have a lot to say, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts, so make sure to tell me how bad this take was, and I'll see you next time.